A common dispute between insurance companies, manufacturers, and contractors is if minor hail damage constitutes functional damage to a metal roof. The question, of course, is being if there's no hole, is it functional damage? Now, functional damage is damage that is either going to immediately leak or is going to cause damage that will significantly lessen the lifespan of the product. Now, you can see in the reflection here, this is a 24 gauge panel, steel, went through a 2 3/4 to 3 inch hail, depending on which report you want to believe. So you see some significant dents here. Now, these are not new. This is about 6 years later. So you've got some pretty deep dents here. Now, you've got this one here. I'm not going to call that hail damage. That's clearly got a scratch. That's blatantly mechanical damage. But we got some pretty deep ones here that you can see actually have ponds of water in them. Now, one can argue that that pond of water will eat away at the finish itself. So the question we want to see is, you see the wear on the finish there. Even after cleaned off, the pond still has a wear. The finish is actually starting to deteriorate, but it's not deteriorating because the finish is stretched. Now you can see the finish itself has not itself stretched or deteriorated. So this is not 2 3/4 inch damage. Did not actually damage the finish. What it did is create divots deep enough that water can rest, and that water is only resting because, as you can see from the slope, it's only about a 212. So these aren't rust marks, these are dirt marks. So realistically, to get this roof back to the pre-hail condition as far as functionality goes, all they'd have to do is clean it now and again, or just coat it once. Single clean and coating on top of it to protect the surface from any ponding water would have resolved this issue. So we can't necessarily call it that. Now, this is 24 gauge panel, but as you can see, and here, this is over top of beams. There's no decking here, there's no solid substrate, so this roof is more prone to damage than normal. Now, the second argument is going to be if the seams themselves are dented. So if these overlaps, these ribs, are dented over significantly enough that it could allow ponding water. I've been across this whole roof. I've yet to see any spots like that, with the exception of there's some other types of damage up here, but nothing from hail. So there's no reason this roof should be called functional damage. One could argue that the screws back out. Anybody with sense would also argue that that's a common part of owning a roof that has a fixed eave detail. Same thing with these valleys over here. That's going to fail due to the way it was installed. Hail may accelerate it, doubtfully, but when you've got an install that's that bad, you can't blame it on hail. So yeah, even though doing some basic chalk, every 2 foot by 2 foot square, I'm finding about an average of 12 hits. There's nothing up here to warrant hail damage. Now, that roof across the way had a Duralast PVC roof. It got replaced. I'm not going to show the signs all the way across town because this is a very easily identifiable building, but there's damage to the modified bitumen next door, the TPO, the PVC. The only two roofs that I wouldn't recommend replacement because of lack of functional damage is this metal roof and the EPDM roof down the street. But yeah, almost every roof in this neighborhood got replaced, but this 24 gauge was not. Labeled as cosmetic damage only. After reviewing it after so many years, you can see there is no rust or anything forming. And I can say from experience, you can take a graphite pencil to mark where you're going to put your cuts, and you could have marked that down here. That would have eaten through the finish and caused rust in this amount of time. So by comparison, looking at these, and you don't see any rust, even in the deepest divots here, that's not rust. Oh, there's a real deep one. clean that out. Nothing. What's happening there is just because of the pond of water.